Dan Mitchinson, US correspondent with us now. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Heather.
How are you guys coping with the AUKUS deal? How's that been received?
Well, it's interesting. There's a lot of different reactions in the news, I think, over here. And when we first heard about this, of all things, it reminded me of a plot from an Australian TV show called Pine Gap, where there was a similar alliance between the U.S. and Australia and against China, I guess. But I think really there's just a bruised ego, especially with France, because they've got the government now working with Australia, our government, trying to help them get these nuclear-powered subs. And so that means Australia is canceling their deal with France, and France looks at this as a stab in the back. And I think it's still confusing for a lot of people in the European Union, because they feel that maybe this is something that Donald Trump might have done, a unilateral decision, because other countries were not really consulted on this.
What is the reaction that you guys are most concerned about? Because, I mean, France is full of bluster. He's going to make that noise, Macron, and then he's probably just going to knock it on the head. Is there anything to be particularly concerned about?
Well, at this point, I don't think so. I mean, I think you just heard of the world wires here. I think the defense secretary is just spinning this as this is sort of a proactive move against China. I mean, I think this is very different about how the European Union is looking at dealing with that country. They want cooperation, and that would be nice because they're potentially a fantastic economic power. And the U.S., I think, is a bit more leery of that power. So Brussels is what I guess you could imagine that, they just don't have as much influence maybe as they previously thought. The EU wants to be taken seriously on security matters, but right now they're probably wondering, well, how are we going to do that moving forward when you've got the US making a decision just like this without consulting anyone else?
Yeah, fair point. I see Joe Biden's got a few poll problems. What sparked this?
Oh gosh, there's a list, Heather. I mean, they had Americans' view on him had dimmed on how he's handling his job. There's a 42% approval rating right now, and more than 50% disapprove. This is a new Quinnipiac University poll, and I think to an extent part of it's the pandemic, and it's certainly Afghanistan. That really, he really took a hit with that, and it gives him a negative score on handling foreign policy, which is ironic because that is, something that he campaigned on and supposedly had all this experience with. His approval rating on how he's handled the military. There's a negative rating on the economy and on climate change, very similar numbers, which is ironic because, that's a big issue for Democrats, and it's been a big issue for Biden too. And it just looks like the majority of Americans think that we are going to be back in Afghanistan one day. And even though, Biden has said no, and in general, the people are just dissatisfied with how things are going in the country. I think that number is something like 70%. So that's a pretty massive number for people to be depressed.
Yeah, fair enough. He deserves it. Why are Gen Z taking these psychedelic drugs? What do they want? Enhancing connectedness. What does that even mean?
Actually, I think we can just say they want to escape the real world. I mean, this sounds almost something like the 60s and 70s, LSD and magic mushrooms, and the recreational use is going up according to a new U.S. study, partly because of COVID. People have been locked up. They're bored. They're stressed. Kids are more accepting of these drugs as a medicine these days. And I guess since the lockdowns, we've seen about, a 10% increase in college students and young adults saying they'd use these. And that's the highest since the 80s. And they, these drugs in the right hands, I mean, they're used to treat depression and PTSD. But the barriers are just coming down. And according to the Global Drug Survey, people are trying to escape from the real world. And this is the ironic thing. They're finding that LSD was rated as the best value for money drug in the world. I don't know exactly what that means.
Well, how much does it cost?
I don't know. Why are you asking me? What are you assuming? That I know this stuff?
You are in California, Dan.
I assume it's just cheap and it can take you away from reality for a little bit with, unfortunately, dangerous consequences.
Yeah, I don't really know anything about it. I mean, you're just licking paper,
I'm not a mule.
aren't
I'm
you?
not your pusher.
Dan, thank you so much. Dan Mitchinson, US correspondent. Jeez, honestly, Dan would know before us, because in California they'd have all those kinds of exciting things. I mean, do we even get it here? Probably not. It's just too exotic for us. Anyway, Donald Trump very literally incited an insurrection, says a text to history will judge him appropriately. He will rot in jail. Well, I don't know if he's gonna, but maybe. And that's too good for him. That's a fair point, because he did do that, right? And that hasn't happened very often, has it?
Listen to Rugby Direct every week to get the lowdown on all you need to know from the rugby world. Rugby Direct has it all. All Blacks, Black Ferns, NPC, and more. Listen to Rugby Direct, powered by News Talk ZB on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts.